All right, I'm going. All right, one. Well, hello, everybody. It's noon, and welcome to the inaugural Ask Dr. Ann um, live stream. So, for those of you that may not know me, here's what my mission is, and that is I'm a physician that specializes in wellness, and my mission is very simple, and that is to motivate people, inspire people, and ultimately empower as many people as I can with the knowledge they need to live the healthiest life. And my areas of expertise are food, nutrition, healthy lifestyle. So that's like exercise, improving sleep, stress control. And I love answering questions. For years, I had a live Ask Dr. Rand radio program, kind of in the Southeast, mostly South Carolina, a bit into North Carolina, a bit into Georgia. And then I also had one in the Midwest. And it was like the highlight of my professional life to do those live radio shows. I love kind of like not knowing what the questions are going to be and feeling kind of honestly kind of on the spot and answering them. It's great for my brain. And I just love clearing up confusion. And I find that there's so much confusion related to my areas of expertise. So I know there are many that are just going to get a recording of this because we send it out to my followers. And but for those that may be joining us live, thank you so much for being here. And thank you for those that are going to listen to the recording, for submitting your questions, and also in your way for being here too. So I had lots of questions already submitted, and I'm going to go ahead and start with these. So the first was a woman who is 57. She's slim build. She's very fit. It sounds like she's very conscious of healthy living, but she's got 4 to 5 pounds of belly, kind of waist fat that she's never really had before. And it's driving her nuts, and she wants to get rid of it. And she's just asking me for my best advice. She said she's dabbled a bit in intermittent fasting and kind of watching carbs, but she just wants my opinion given her status for the pathway to best success. So, a couple things I like to say here is this is very common. Women around menopause, it can begin in premenopause and kind of continue thereafter. We tend to, there's a shift in where we distribute our body fat. For example, I am the same weight I was when I was a senior in high school. And I'm frankly quite proud of that. It's not easy to maintain your weight throughout your adult life, but it's definitely achievable, and I'm a living example of that. But that said, I definitely have some adipose tissue in certain spots that I know I didn't have. That it was not there when I was in high school. So there's this kind of shift, and where we put our fat in midlife and above as women, it tends to kind of go more in this truncal area. And it may very well be that that's happening because our bodies are wanting, they're sensing that our estrogen levels are dropping. And believe it or not, fat in that area, particularly visceral fat, can produce more estrogen than fat, subcutaneous fat in our arms and legs. And so that may be some of why it's happening. Okay. But it is kind of a reality, this redistribution of fat. So my best advice for this woman who asked is, first of all, I would absolutely adhere to time restricted feeding. I'm a huge advocate of that. Is one of the easiest and least painful ways to shed some weight. And if you could do an 8-hour TRE, that means you're limiting all of your eating to an 8-hour window, or 9 or 10. That would be what is best. 8 is something that is not sustainable, in my opinion. I think it's too hard to do long term, but you can certainly try it for a couple of weeks, and and then maybe go to, because that may do it right there, and then maybe go to 10. Anyway, but assuming that TRE is safe for you, time restricted feeding, and you got to do it, and you got to do it right. Again, I have an entire e-course on this topic. I mean, I could talk for 2 hours, so I don't have time to give you all the details of that. But limit all your feeding to a certain window each and every day between 8 and 10 hours. And then really, really be conscious of conquering your carbs. You've got to do your carbs right. I mean, refined processed carbs, the white flour products, white rice, white potatoes, sugar and sweets are just the bane as we get older for metabolic dysfunction, making weight control much more challenging. So you got to do those carbs right. So get the bad ones out, those great white hazards, those white carbs, and bring the good ones in. And the good ones are simple. It's fruits, it's vegetables, it's beans and whole grains. And again, if you want to get there as fast as possible, although you can absolutely, of course, lose weight eating fruit. Um, if you had to pick between eating, 400 calories a day of fruit or 400 days of 400 calories a day of non-starchy veggies, the veggies are going to be better. So particularly make sure you're bringing in those non-starchy veggies. Eat them, eat them, eat them. The more you eat of them, the leaner you're going to be. So again, I would just do TRE and really focus on doing your carbs right and bumping up beans and bumping up non-starchy veggies particularly, right? So the good carbs are fruits, vegetables, beans, and whole grains. And of those vegetables and beans, for reasons I'm not gonna be able to get into all the details because I'll never be able to answer all these questions that came in. Okay, and of course, exercise is huge. So can you step it up? I know you're fit, but can you go a little more, maybe somehow? Um, okay, is there a plan for an updated Eat Right for Life? So for those who don't know, I've written 6 books, and I have this whole series of books called Eat Right, the Eat Right for Life series. The first one was Eat Right for Life, and that was a life-changing book for my professional life. Because it was so incredibly successful. And I'm grateful to my partners at WellCoa, the Wellness Council of America. They were the publishers of that book, and it got the Gold National Health Information Award. That's kind of the Grammy in health information for the public. And although I'm so grateful I wrote all those books, I really am not going to write any more books. I mean, I say never, but we never know. But I don't feel that right now. And the reason is because I now have my online school. And I think my school, meaning me standing up kind of like this, but it's even, we have it produced and great cameras and lighting, and we can thread things into the video. I think I am strongest in this context versus reading words of mine from a book. And so, because I have access to the school and can produce any course I want, that's really where I want to concentrate my efforts. And in terms of that book, so no, it's not in the works to kind of republish it or even update it. But here's the good news: I can just tell you. I mean, I know the book, like the back of my hand, that the information in there is still as true today as it was when I wrote it. And the only thing I would maybe tweak if I could go back and do some editing would I would trump up fiber, probably position it even more profoundly as an important thing for our diet. I would also likely position fermented foods even more robustly. And we do have some new data on the saturated fats in um, wholesome dairy products, particularly fermented dairy products like kefir and yogurt, that they were not the villains we once thought they were. And I am now relaxed in my guidelines for people that want to have full fat dairy, particularly full fat fermented dairy, versus just the low fat versions. There's still no problem, and I'm still an advocate of low fat dairy, but I'm also fine with people having full fat dairy, particularly for fermented dairy products. And that would be really the only areas that I would likely, edit a little bit for that book. And thank you to this person who has read it and reread it over 10 times because repetition works, and we know that. And I know that from my own reading and my own studying too. So this next person has a very stress-felt life. Heart goes out to you. Her life partner is dealing with, unfortunately, a very advanced cancer. And in the midst of that, all that probably great stress, she is having trouble keeping her weight on. So first I want to say, and is asking for my advice, first I want to say, again, my heart, my prayers are with you. You need to not maybe, you should talk to your healthcare provider about it. Sometimes you could have something happening to you medically that is leading to this, and you don't want that to be occurring and you not being aware of it. Chances are that it is from the stress. And most people, I'm someone that when I get stressed, I drop weight very fast, even without changing how I'm eating. And that's just the way I'm wired. Other people have the opposite problem. They tend to gain weight, probably because they're doing more emotional eating. And the way, other than talking to your own healthcare provider about it, the way you're approaching it looks good. You just want to increase your intake of healthy foods that have the most calories. And so fat has 9 calories per unit gram, whereas carbs and protein have 4. So the logic would be, can you increase your intake of healthy fats? So that is going to be, extra virgin olive oil, nuts and seeds, avocados, and then like nut butters. Okay, that's the kind of the things that come to my mind. Dark chocolate is another one that comes to my mind. So in general, just eating more calories, but certainly with the focus on, because it's easier to get more calories in per unit volume if you focus on healthy fats. Eating more nuts, eating more seeds, eating more nut butters. Eating more avocado, drizzling the olive oil, which sounds like you're already kind of doing. And again, I'm someone that it's just that the stress is altering your metabolism, not necessarily in a good way. And you can lose actually a fair amount of protein when you're really stressed if weight's coming off, muscle protein. We don't want that. So also be conscious of getting your protein too. So the next question relates to bone density. What do you recommend to improve bone density? So diet has definitely plays a huge role in bone density, as does weight-bearing exercise. With weight-bearing exercise, really probably topping anything, and that's going to be yoga, bands, Pilates, any kind of movement where that you're pushing or pulling or moving against a force or resistance. So free weights, weight machines, bands, yoga, Pilates. I think walking with these loaded backpacks. What's the term for that? Is that called rucking? Can be great for bone density, and it's easy and generally safe for most people. And in terms of the specific dietary strategies, again, that is something that talking nonstop to give you all of that information would take me about an hour and 20 minutes. So, some of these questions are like, I can just give you some general guidelines because I don't have an hour and 20 minutes per question to answer. But diet has a huge role, and there's lots of aspects of diet. But if you just want kind of a truncated answer with your diet, you want to make sure you're doing tons of plants, and you want to make sure you're getting adequate protein, which most people in America are doing that without even beginning to try. And you want to make sure you're doing appropriate weight-bearing exercise. I don't deal in clinical medicine any longer. So I practiced clinical medicine for about 20 years, but I left clinical practice. It's now been 25 years ago. So please don't ever ask me anything related to, prescription drugs for treating things, because I don't work in that world anymore, and I'm just not equipped to be able to answer that. Okay. So thank you for your understanding. I had a few questions about that kind of stuff. Yeah, so this, again, back to this person, an elderly female, got some osteopenia and maybe a little osteoporosis. You want to just drill down onto eating lots of plants, making sure you get calcium, make sure you get your magnesium, make sure you get your protein, staying away from processed foods, make sure you're doing your weight bearing. And again, I don't have a specific program on that you can access on my school. I do private consultations. I don't promote that I do it, but I do that. And I could share all that stuff with you. Probably it would take about an hour and a half. Diet for thyroid cancer recovery. Okay, so again, important here, anyone recovering from a cancer should always talk first to their oncologist, their healthcare provider, about what is best for them. Okay, beyond that, I can give some general recommendations. What we recommend for cancer survivors in general is to adhere to the same strategies, diet and lifestyle wise, that we recommend for prevention of cancer. And we know what those are. We have literally up to a couple million studies that have been published looking at diet, lifestyle, and cancer over the last probably 50 years. And so, and this is relevant to everyone. If you want to know, what are the general guidelines for preventing, and if you're a cancer survivor, for keeping cancer from coming back. The top thing, of course, is don't smoke. Most people know that. Next thing is going to be keep your weight in a healthy range. Okay, it's beyond not smoking. It is the top thing you can do to reduce cancer risk, and it plays a role in cancer recurrence. Okay, so keep your weight in a healthy range, meaning if you're overweight or obese, you want to work to get your in some sort of healthy manner to get your weight in a healthy range. The next, and these are all in order, the next most powerful thing you can do is make sure you exercise. And the more daily is best, but at least 5 days a week and at least 30 minutes of increased heart rate activity, like taking a brisk walk, but more is better. And in a perfect world, you want to be engaging in accumulating an hour of physical activity most every day to optimize your cancer protective properties in your body. Okay. And then beyond that, we get into the dietary stuff. So you want to make sure that you are avoiding processed food, particularly ultra processed foods, and the ones that we know have so many damaging agents, those refined carbs, junk food, fast food, things that have the, processed carbs, the unhealthy fats, just, on and on, and weird ingredients that we think are doing strange things to our immune systems and our gut microbiomes, things like that. So staying away from processed foods, eating real foods, particularly with the focus on plant-based foods, fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, nuts, and seeds. That's where you want to spend a lot of time. You want to limit your intake of red meat, 2 servings or less a week, for sure. And those are kind of the guidelines for cancer. And the same person was asking about removing plaque and arteries. Again, both of those things, for me to answer them in their entirety with the specifics, would take me about an hour and a half each. So, and I share that. So first of all, why I can't give that, because I don't have that kind of time, but also to inspire you and motivate you. I mean, there's so much you can do through diet and lifestyle for these conditions. Okay. And one thing, after kind of reading through these questions, I thought, everyone deserves to know the basic guidelines for healthy eating, because that is the answer for, preventing and reversing cardiovascular disease, the answer for not getting cancer in the first place, or if you had it, not having it not come back, or it's also the answer for the bone health. All these things you're asking me, first and foremost, just make sure you absolutely know the golden guidelines for healthy eating. And I have that as a simple cheat sheet that Zoe, my right-hand woman, is going to make available in some way, I think in the chat section, that you can just copy and paste that, URL or whatever it is, and have access to that really, really helpful resource. I mean, I even keep it up on my own fridge. Of course I know these things, but it's nice to have it up there. And plus it influences my husband, it influences my children that might be around, or people and guests I have, right? Without me having to say anything. And so that is great. And Zoe, if you need to chime in at one point to talk about how you're going to make that available to people, you can. The next question relates to joint pain. This is someone in menopause. I'm having significant joint pain that I didn't have before. What can I eat to help this? First of all, you should report it to your healthcare provider. Again, there could be something causing it that needs some sort of specific treatment, or at a minimum needs to be properly diagnosed. Hopefully it's just run-of-the-mill, what we call degenerative joint disease. You get it just as a result of aging, also known as osteoarthritis. So much you can do. So look at the golden guidelines for healthy eating, because those are the things, eating more of those plant-based foods for all the fiber and all the great things fiber does, and all those phytochemicals, and the higher concentration of vegetables, vitamins and minerals, and the anti-inflammatory power. I could go on and on and on. I also have an e-course just focusing on inflammation. Inflammation is a key driver of all Crohn's disease. Most all Crohn's disease is the primary driver. And so again, that has all the nitty gritty, all the things you can do through diet and lifestyle, all the specifics there if you want to access that. Because there's so much you can do, but I'm just going to say, get that golden guidelines, that cheat sheet. You can look at that and make sure you are doing those things. Okay. And then just a couple of anti-inflammatory, really superstar foods that I would kind of maybe highlight in your case. You know, brightly colored fruits and veggies, definitely those that have red and blue and purple hues, the orange, red, yellow hues are really, really good. Beans are incredible because they have more fiber than any other food. Fiber may be the most powerful anti-inflammatory ingredient in Mother Nature's arsenal, and no food will give you fiber like beans can, and everyone should be striving to have a legume. That would be a bean, a pea, or a lentil, a serving of legume every day, and feel free to have more than one serving a day. Herbs and spices, the powerhouses for decreasing inflammation are going to be your garlic, turmeric, and your ginger. So I would use those very, very liberally. Other anti-inflammatory superstars: extra virgin olive oil, dark chocolate, freshly brewed green tea, particularly matcha, whole soy foods, that's like tofu, tempeh, edamame, very, very special, soy milk, and then fermented foods. So fermented foods are like yogurt, kefir, sauerkraut. There's a whole slew of fermented veggies now you can get. Tempeh is a fermented soy food. Miso paste is a fermented soy food. Kombucha, I'm drinking a little bit of that right now. It's a fermented beverage. Anyway, try to do more of those because they appear to have a really potent anti-inflammatory power. And that's one of the big reasons I do them, in addition to being really good for my gut. And those are kind of the high points on the anti-inflammatory foods, right? And the pro-inflammatory foods are going to be refined, those white carbs, sugar, red meat, particularly fatty cuts of red meat, omega-6 fats, which you're typically just going to be getting if you get, junk foods and processed foods, right? All right, someone, probably my husband's trying to get into the house. I may have to go unlock the door. I lock the door thinking my elderly mother might come over. Let's see if that door's open. John, hold on. Hold on, sorry. I'm in the middle of, I didn't think you were coming home. Sorry. Wasn't expecting that visit. Sorry. Yeah. Let's see. Anyway, enough on the inflammation. That's the high points for that. Someone's asking about a link between diet and vaginosis, and there is some data linking. We don't have extensive published data. There is some data linking diet to that issue, and particularly with carbs, refined carbs and sugar, driving increasing the chances of that. So I would tell this person to really, really zero in on conquering your carbs. All right. So get the great white hazards out: white flour products, white rice, white potatoes, sugar and sweets, and bring in more fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains. Okay. And that's going to be probably the primary answer for any question someone could ask me. And that's where Americans really do the most wrong. Correct? Right? Okay. Someone's asking about a low red blood cell count. Again, please talk to your doctor. I mean, that's a very clinical question. They're whole food plant-based. They said their iron, their ferritin levels are within range. What could be missing? Thank you for your thoughts. So again, your doctor should be able to, is the one to say, why am I having this? I need an answer. What can we do? Do we need to do more studies? Because you're a whole food plant-based, one thing that comes to my mind is your B12 low? Could it be your folate being low? Probably not folate if you're plant-based. But definitely a possibility B12. So you need to get your physician to help figure out why that's the case. This person is also wondering about a good recipe with canned salmon. I should have at least one, if not two, on my website. So I have had on my website before, because I have recipes, they're free. I have certainly had salmon croquettes on my website, and I've certainly had like salmon salad, like making like how you would tuna salad, but with salmon. But you can definitely just put in, here's what I do when I'm searching for recipes that I may not have in my head, right? or on my website, I'll just put in 5-star healthy recipe for salmon croquettes. And then you see all the things that pop up and you look at them and you use your knowledge of healthy eating to know, and your knowledge of what you like to make an informed choice of like what would be a good one to try. So that would be my advice for you there. What is the cleanest protein powder I use in smoothies, oatmeal to boost my protein for the day? So, I'm not a huge fan of protein powders because I'm a huge fan of eating real food because that's where we have the data. Okay. And I don't think there's a contest if you had to choose between a protein powder and eating a healthy, wholesome protein. And there's so many. So any nut, any seed, nut and seed butters, whole soy foods, that's tofu, that's tempeh, that's soy milk, beans and legumes. Again, these plant-based proteins are just off the charts. And then we have, seafood, oily fish in particular, but any form of seafood. You can have lean poultry. The one I would say definitely never do is processed red meat. And I would also attenuate the intake of red meat. We have a big study out, real powerful data, prospective, major cohort, big, huge cohort of people looking at intake of red meat and processed red meat kind of separate in diabetes risk. And there's no question, the more you eat, the greater your risk of diabetes, which is something that is epidemic, right? So I would tell this person, can you, if it was me, I would be wanting to get my protein from a healthy protein real food package. So for me, it would be kefir. I love goat milk kefir. But you could get any kind of kefir you want, and I would do plain, or it could be plain yogurt. Greek strain yogurt, really potent in the amount of protein you get. You could throw in some tofu. Tofu doesn't have any flavor. Just put tofu in there, or tempeh, which is fermented soy, which is the healthiest of all soy foods, and really is flavorless. And if you're blending it up in a smoothie, who cares? Just the plain, I would put that in there. And thinking about oatmeal, like, okay, I don't want to put tofu in my oatmeal. I don't want to put tempeh in my oatmeal. Then I would go with, again, the yogurt, the kefir, some nuts, some seeds, some nut butter, some seed butter. And if you just want the convenience and the quickness of some protein powder, then I would say find a protein powder that you look at the ingredients and it's just 100% real food and like nothing strange on there that you couldn't have in your kitchen. So like you can get just hemp protein powder. The ingredients of that are hemp seeds, and hemp seeds are off the chart good for you. I would make sure it's organic. So again, I'm just not a fan of these more, in a way, processed, factory made, newfangled protein powders. And let me also just say it's exceedingly rare in America that people are not getting enough protein. Recommended daily intakes of protein are 0.8 milligrams per kilogram. In America, the average person gets 1.6 milligrams per kilogram a day. Okay. So, I don't think you need to be obsessed with protein. You're probably getting plenty. Recommendations for packing a hungry working man's lunch. This is someone who's very physically active, exercises, but also very physically active at work. And his sweet partner is putting in like fruit, granola, apple, banana, protein bar, turkey sandwich on wheat bread, veggies, hummus, cottage cheese, trail mix, hard-boiled eggs, maybe a muffin. So anyway, and he still comes home hungry. Wow, but he's really in. So the important thing for me is, what is his weight? If his weight is in the normal range, well, great. Hunger is really beneficial, assuming his weight is normal. But if he is underweight, then that's a whole different matter. And the concept there for being underweight is to really trump up healthy fats. Okay, so and just increase calories in general. But if his weight is normal, in the normal range, and not near underweight, I wouldn't really just tell him that hunger is a really good thing, because when you're hungry, your anti-aging pathways are likely being triggered and your pro-aging pathways are likely being dialed back. Okay. All right. And then we'll go to some questions that just got submitted here live. Um, what are the healthiest breads? So the best way to take advantage of whole grains is to consume a physically intact whole grain. Okay, we like physically intact whole grains like oatmeal, brown rice, quinoa, barley, farro, etc. Better than bread because although breads can be made with 100% whole grains, they've been significantly physically processed, which increases their glycemic response and likely diminishes their value for the healthy microbes living in the gastrointestinal tract. But if you're going to do bread, make sure it's 100% whole grain. If you can find sprouted 100 whole grains are awesome. And just look at the ingredients list and make sure that you recognize all the words and that you could have those things in your own home, right? And look for those that have the most fiber and the most protein. Those are also two other things to look for to help you make the healthiest, most informed choice. What about sweeteners like stevia? So these 0-calorie sweeteners, I've never been a fan of them. And the reason, and I've never recommended any of them. And the reasons are, first of all, we have no real evidence they help us for reasons we think they do. In fact, if you look particularly at the long term, we see people that use the most of those things tend to gain more weight over time than people that don't. Right. And then the other thing that concerns me about them is we do have plenty of published studies giving us biologically plausible ways that they could actually work against us on the scale and actually lead to increased caloric consumption and weight gain. Okay, so it's not, we have some mechanisms that have been shown in studies and trials to be at play when people take those in, things that could lead to actually gaining weight. And the other thing we know for sure is they're all exquisitely sweet substances, and depending on which one you use, anywhere from 40 to hundreds of times sweeter than table sugar. So they exploit your taste buds for sweet. If you're doing them regularly, your sensitivity to sweet is really diminished, meaning it takes a lot of sweet for you to notice sweet. And if that's the case, then you're never going to be able to enjoy fruit like you should and have that be like a definitely sweet dessert, or be able to taste the deliciousness in roasted veggies like broccoli and cauliflower, that kind of sweetness they acquire when you roast them. And I want you to be able to experience that. And if someone insists on doing them, or for diabetics that occasionally want to have a sweet treat, that's where they have a place in my book. And I am most comfortable with stevia in that it's a little bit more natural. Although don't think the stevia you're getting has not been produced in a factory. I mean, yes, it's extracted from stevia leaves, which are natural, but it's not like they're just taking stevia leaves and drying them and grinding them up, because they're not. I mean, there's some extraction and things involved that require man and probably machines and maybe some chemicals and things like that. And again, if you do it, I would do it very sparingly. And thank you, Zoe. She has put the link to access the Golden Guidelines, that the URL there, to be able to, you could copy that URL in the chat box, the question box, Dr. Ann Wellness. You see that will take you to a link where you will be able to access my Golden Guidelines cheat sheet, which is right there. Okay. Perhaps some of you already have that. Oftentimes it's included as just a bonus in my Healthy Living School courses. Great. So thank you for doing that. And if we don't have any more questions now, any lingering questions? I'm happy to remain to answer them if needed. And just so people know, I'm gonna, I didn't give much promotion that I'm doing this, but I'm gonna commit to try to do it weekly. and to do it weekly on this day at this time. So I guess we're on Thursday at 12 Eastern, because I do love answering questions, and doing some teaching and as I answer them. So, all right. Well, with that, I think we will, unless I hear from Zoe, we will call it a wrap. And so thank you for those of you that are going to listen to this after the fact, and those of you that had time and took the time out of your day to join us on the live stream. Thank you.
It looks like we have one more question coming from, did you see it in the chat box?
Oh, I do. Great question. Do you really need to go low carb? No, I never said that. I know there are good carbs on your list, but corn and potatoes seem to have some nutritional value. So I love this question. It's really, really good, and allows me to get into a little bit more of the nuance. So what you want to do is what I call a right carb diet. Okay, I'm not an advocate of low carb diets. I'm a real advocate of a right carb diet. Getting white flour products, white rice, and some form and all forms of white potatoes, with exception of one that I'll tell you about in a second, out, and of course sugar out, and replacing those with fruits, vegetables, beans, whole grains, and of those carbs, again, depending on your goals, if someone has a lot of weight to lose, or someone's, is kind of in a rush, then focusing on non-starchy veggies, focusing on beans, or beans, peas, legumes, beans, peas, lentils, which are all members of the legume family. Legumes and non-starchy veggies just are really, really, really special. And I would say focusing on those more so than fruits. And I would also add physically intact whole grains are amazing, but for anyone that wants to lose weight, anyone with any background metabolic issues, which is the majority of Americans now, so prediabetes, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, fatty liver disease, I would say forego anything made from flour, including 100% whole grain products, and just do physically intact whole grains. And I think that's the healthiest thing to do. And that's pretty much what I do. I rarely eat any form of bread, or including things that are made from 100% whole grain breads, right? Because I eat a ton of intact whole grains, a lot of brown rice, a lot of quinoa, oatmeal, and sometimes barley and farro and some of those more exotic grains. So no, you do not have to go low carb. And regarding potatoes, so the problem with potatoes is we are, as Americans, eating way, way, way too much of them. And they shove out the opportunity to bring these other good foods in. So that's one of the biggest issues we have, because potatoes comprise, I think, like a third of just a third to 30 to 25 to 30% of the vegetables consumed. So that's just ridiculous. That is ridiculous. And they do have a high glycemic response. The exception is going to be small, waxy, little new potatoes. And if you eat them with the skin, because they're immature and their starch structure is different from a regular, kind of potato. So, your baked potatoes, your, French fries and your hash browns and those kind of more processed white potato things are definitely something I would avoid for health and for weight. Okay. And if you want to have potatoes, I had some the night before last, is do the small waxy new potatoes, particularly the purple ones, if you can get them with the purple flesh, and eat them with the skin. And if you can cool them for 24 hours after you cook them, that will further reduce their glycemic response. And again, the problem with white potatoes is they have the highest glycemic response, the white of a baked potato, of any other food. I mean, your sugar goes up faster and higher than if you sat down to eat sugar out of the bowl. And for people that have background metabolic issues, that is really, really not good for them. I mean, it's bad for them. Okay. But that said, good things about potatoes is great source of vitamin C. They do have some fiber. They have some minerals. They can have some antioxidants, but plenty of other vegetables beat them out, okay? And same for corn. I have no problem with bits of corn here and there. And I use corn in my cooking. I use it in, I love raw corn cut, straight from the cob in my salads. But, my husband and I are going to be splitting an ear, right? Or I might use a small can of sheephead corn in my healthy bean salad. But corn is metabolized in the body and treated more in the body like a starch, right? So it's got a high glycemic response. It's not off the charts in its nutritional profile relative to green vegetables and some of these other vegetables. But they, of course, they have nutritional value. They're just, I wouldn't put, they're not a superstar food. And I like people to kind of really focus on the foods that give you the most nutritional bang for your efforts, the one with the most vitamins, minerals, fiber, phytochemicals, the one, and we have those lists. So anyway, that would be my answer to that. I hope that clarified, because I'm not an advocate of low carb diets. I don't, if someone tells me they do low carb short term and it really helped them lose weight, how can I argue with that when losing weight is probably the top thing you could do if you're overweight for your health? So, I can't disparage that when someone's had great success and has improved their health doing it. But I think there are healthier ways to, to lose weight than going that route. List not linked. I don't know what. I must have said something wrong. Sometimes when I do this kind of stuff, my brain's going so fast, I say words wrong. So superstar foods list, I think, is what I'm supposed to have said. And maybe I said superstar food link. I didn't mean to say that. Sorry. All right. Any other questions? Zoe, any others that you see coming through?
I think that's everything.
Okay. Well, thank you all. And we'll do this again next week. Okay. Take care.